Well, good evening, and welcome to what's likely going to be a short work session for this evening, Monday, October the 16th, 2023, of the Raymore City Council. We have a couple of items on the agenda tonight. The first one being a development update, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Fearborn.
Tonight, we are looking for council feedback at the very, very, very early stages of a potential new type of incentive to be offered to someone, and Ms. Lee is going to kind of give you a 30,000 foot level. And again, what we're looking for is, do you want us to even proceed with the initial investigation into it at this point? Ms. Lee.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to talk to you guys, I'm here to talk to you tonight about workforce participation as it relates to our existing and oncoming employers. Childcare has been a topic of conversation with all of the tenants in the Raymore Commerce Center, and the conversation will not be going away. We are seeking input from the council on the concept of a childcare facility in Raymore. Our goal is to collaborate with community partners to utilize a unique solution to help solve this issue. The solution needs to focus on two key components: capacity and affordability. Our vision is to have a 24/7 childcare facility located near the Raymore Commerce Center. 24/7 childcare will best serve the employees of the Commerce Center since a number of these businesses operate all day. Additionally, the ideal childcare facility would be priced with those employees in mind. We know there is a lack of childcare, but there is also a lack of affordable childcare. There is an economic development agency that is pursuing a similar concept in Clarksville, Tennessee. The Clarksville Child Care Project consists of 4 buildings on an 18-acre site located in a very large industrial park. They have opened and closed their RFP process and have chosen a child care provider. The child care buildings are a $14 million investment with an anticipated hard launch of fall 2024. To get this project off the ground, the EDO established a Chapter 100 incentive package with the lifespan of 15 years. Additionally, the land was dedicated to the project from the local municipalities. The center has up to 800 spots for children, 50% of which are reserved for employees of the industrial park. Additionally, the industrial park employees receive a 15% discount on their child care rate. The ideal child care facility in Raymore would be modeled similarly to the Clarksville facility, with 50% of the spots being reserved for Raymore Commerce Center employees. Staff has had discussions with Van Trust, and they are excited about the opportunity as well. Van Trust has indicated that land could be available for this facility. Further along in the planning phase, this project will be brought before the City Council to discuss potential avenues and assistance the city could provide to support the project. Mr. Zur graciously offered to hand out 2 news articles about the Clarksville project, the rendering of their child care facility, as well as a map with the location of the facility circled in red where it will be at their industrial park. It's a set of 3 papers. Oh, I might have made too many. And like Mr. Fearborn said, this is a very high in the sky ideal project that we would love to consider, but I'm open to any questions and feedback.
So as I understand it, it's a public-private partnership. The partnership from the public would be the incentive packages that we might be able to offer for such a facility. Is that correct?
Yes, so the process that Clarksville took was the EDO led the charge, which is just an external economic development group. They're not housed within the city. And this is actually in a county, so it's a county-wide industrial park. But so they came together and they made the RFP and sent it out to look for childcare providers. So the childcare providers, when they answered the RFP, knew what they were getting themselves into, that there were the requirements that 50% were reserved for the industrial park employees, and that there would be a discount for those employees as well. So they let the childcare provider know that ahead of time. And in this case, the childcare provider is responsible for building the facility. That's something that could be discussed. But the municipalities then dedicated the land and gave the incentive package. But Van Trust is also excited about this opportunity, and they don't have, their developer of this large industrial park isn't as involved as Van Trust is with us.
Right. Okay. Anybody?
The council may remember several years ago, on the property located due south of Harold Estates, that we actually put out an RFP for that to become a TIF area, which is actually, it was the first one in Missouri, disappointingly, the city had sponsored, because that's actually why TIF was put in place, for cities to address blight situations and blight areas by putting out RFPs. In the state of Missouri, the entire incentive thing has kind of gotten backwards, in that developers come in, they identify an area, and then they actually work with the city, and in the city's name, they put out an RFP that they're going to be the only bidder on. So happens on that one, we did get a bidder to our solicitation. This would be the same sort of a process. We would actually be putting out, just like we did there, an RFP for anyone who might be interested to come in and talk to us about the program that they would offer, the parameters that they would be able to work within, and of course the RFP that would go out would give us the opportunity to basically tailor the parameters to something that the city, the developer, everybody else could live with in a situation like this. The developer has indicated, Ms. Lee had kind of touched on it, that they would be more interested in having it be a freestanding facility, which of course makes it more attractive to that other 50% who might want to use it 24/7. Would be unique. This would be the first in the metropolitan area, at least, that operated under this, if not a regional aspect, that would actually be using a program like this. Not the first to be 24/7, but the first that would actually be operating under a program where they were incentivized. Obviously, a component of the incentive that would be offered may be, the city may be able to structure that to provide for affordability within what is becoming an increasingly expensive service to be offered. So at this point in time, we're just interested in council discussion and see if we should proceed forward with the idea of creating an RFP and working with Van Trust to move forward. Again, even if the RFP goes out, there'll be a cost to the RFP. It would be moderate, as was the one on the Westgate property, but there is no encumbrance on the council to accept any of the proposals that are received, just like any RFP that would go out.
Yeah. Mr. Townsend, did you have something? Okay. Kevin?
Oh, thank you. Just curious, and we've talked to Van Trust. I've been out of the game. You know, I've got a freshman in college, so I can remember the challenges with daycare and whatnot. I'm sure it would be a big advantage for them, the developer, for future development and future tenants there, to have something like that. And what was their, do they have any idea about capacity? I mean, I know they've got other sites around. I think this one's, what, 400 full-time? Had they talked anything about that, or is it too early? Or are we just talking about the concept right now?
We are strictly at the concept level. That would be down in the weeds of the RFP, sir. We could make it whatever we wanted it to be, or a tiered effect.
The industrial park in Clarksville is exponentially larger than the Raymore Commerce Center, in addition to the southern part as well. So I don't think that we would have a facility that could hold up to 800. It would be a much smaller scale, I think. But Van Trust has expressed that they would like to carve out land that they own or in their area to make this a possibility.
I would just add, though, if you drew a 10-mile circle around our industrial park, there's many more around as well. So I would think something like this, especially if it had 24-hour care, would be very attractive to other commerce centers around, not just ours.
Ms. Townsend, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for bringing this forward. I had some conversations with some different people in the past on child care services, particularly to the Van Trust area and all the facilities that are in the area, and the one 24-hour one that I'm aware of in Kansas City, and talking with the operator of that particular one, was surprised to learn that a sheriff from Cass County takes their children to that one because it's 24 hours. And that was an eye-opener, like, well, if they're driving that far for their shift, this would be definitely value add to the community. So, and then just kind of from that conversation, looking at Missouri's child care, services and facilities, there aren't that many in the Kansas City area, let alone, our county. There's only one caregiver that actually does 24-hour, and that's in a family home, according to what's registered. And their capacity is only 10 children. So obviously there's a need potentially there. So it'd be interesting to see how this progresses from a capacity, from a size of facility, age of the children, that we offered, and particularly the affordability and the incentive behind it. One area, as we're moving forward, I don't know if you've explored it, but within the Kansas City Area Transit Authority, its economic development arm does have opportunities for transit-oriented development with workforce childcare. So there may be some FTA funding partnerships that may be also available to support, help with the project when that RFP goes out to look at that. So we may look at, can put you in contact with the director of that department to have those conversations, see how that looks. Granted, there's no quote-unquote transit out here, but that's not necessarily a roadblock to that opportunity. So,
Sonia?
Thank you. First of all, yes, 24/7 childcare is practically impossible to find from the police wife world. There's a lot of requests for places that do that, because it really is really hard to find our single people on the police force. It's a big challenge. Secondly, kind of the other hat, have we talked at all to school districts about this? Both of our school districts have early childhood centers, and I know that there is an amount of state funding for that, especially pre-K year, as far as that. So school districts should be part of the conversation, I think.
And that was going to be definitely, and we're going to write that down. We need to approach them. One of the things that is a sensitive area that we need to be aware of with it, and is being more of a facilitator between Van Trust and grant opportunities that are outside of us. Little less on the incentive side, because we have daycares that haven't been incentivized, that are successful and existing, and not 24/7, but you always want to be careful with the language of what you're doing there, because we want to be very sensitive to our successful partners who are here already.
Sure.
One additional point, I know that the waiting list for the early childhood center for the Belton School District is gigantic. This year, we've been having conversations about what are we going to do.
Well, as I recall as well, that when we visited Newly, or not Newly, but Urban Outfitters in Philadelphia, they had a special program there. And are they interested in partnering with Van Trust on something to that effect? Are you aware?
I'm sure Newly would be very happy to partner with Van Trust. I know it was part of the conversation when Newly initially came, and to Raymore the first time, and then I believe it was brought up again the second time as well when they decided to choose Raymore. So this is kind of part of the reason that sparked the conversation of childcare is Newly specifically, but just also looking at the entire Commerce Center as a huge need, but Newly, I'm sure, would be interested. We haven't talked to them yet moving forward, just since it's a concept at this point, but I'm sure that they would be happy.
Mr. Burke?
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing this unique and I think innovative idea. It's one of the most different ideas that I think I've seen in my 9 years on council. It's really something I hadn't thought about before, but it's a great idea. The affordability aspect of it is key. If when we got to in our family where we had 2 children in daycare, it took 80% of my wife's teaching salary. So she just stayed home, and we made 20% less, but we didn't put out 80% to a daycare, and she became their first teacher. Most people can't do that, and this is the other part about it that is really good. If it's really close to the location of the warehouses, that'll make it so much more attractive than having to drive through the city and find a location, drop your children off, make sure you have everything, and then drive through the traffic to get to work. With it being right there, that'll make it very, very attractive for those workers.
Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up, is the proposed grant/incentive program tied to the business, meaning a childcare, or to the facility? Everything we've done so far has been the facility.
It'd be however we wrote it.
Okay.
I believe
But a
in
good question.
Clarksville, it was kind of a double-edged sword. So I think that the child care provider gets the Chapter 100 incentive, and then the municipalities gave the land. So there were 2 incentives in play in Clarksville, and one to help each side of it. One for the land to get the to get the facility on board, and then the child care got Chapter 100.
Because I would assume in this context, even with the Clarksville scenario, the developer/Van Trust type entity built the facility, city provided the incentive, but they licensed a vendor to actually operate the childcare.
The child care facility, the child care provider, they're building the building.
Okay.
I think that there are multiple developers within this large, it's gigantic. I should have done an aerial map of the whole thing. It's very large. So I think they probably have multiple different developers in there. So the EDO as a county kind of took it on together. And so they never mentioned a developer being involved. It was strictly between the EDO and the child care provider.
Yes, Jake?
I have a question. What was the origin of the idea? Was it something that you knew about, or were we approached by Van Trust or someone?
Well, workforce is always a topic kind of in the forefront of our minds as a city and as as economic development. With all these new buildings, it's kind of just an idea that came, and we decided it needed to be addressed. No one came to the city and said, we need childcare.
Okay, thank you.
It's Miss Lee's idea, sir. She's not going to say that. I'll say it for her.
Excellent. Yeah, Jay?
It's I think it's an interesting idea. It's very intriguing, and I think it would provide a nice service, but this is not as straightforward as it seems. If we do this, we would be incentivizing a product that already exists in town, and those people are not going to be happy about that. I agree we need to approach the schools. You also want to remember they were against financial incentives for that entire district down there. I'm not sure I don't know how they'll read this. Maybe they'll be in support, maybe they won't. I think it's probably a prudent step to go ahead into it and look a little further, but it's one hand, this looks really good, but there may be some people with some different feelings on the other side of it, and we'll find out as we step into this for sure. It's not quite as straightforward as some of the other things that we've done in the past, but it's really an intriguing idea, and it would provide a very nice service to the community. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's why I mentioned Urban Outfitters, because I think that was something that they funded themselves. I think they did get an incentive package from the community, but actually they were the developer.
As stated, I think it will be critical to the degree that we can bring the players to the table, a famous KCATA line, that we can bring the players to the table to get them to participate in the discussion and ultimately contribute, and we become more of a facilitator of a great idea than we just simply put it together.
Right.
I concur. I think for this to be successful, we need to have multiple partners, Van Trust, Newly, whoever, putting some pieces into this so that it doesn't look like this was pushed out or was pushed out completely by the city and we did everything on Chapter 100 bonds for them to make this work. If we had multiple partners involved for a project that's providing a community service, I think it's an easier sell. I agree.
And of course, the first people who we would send the RFP to would be the existing providers, because they can always get in on this.
Sure. Yeah, Kevin?
Thank you. I would just add, and then probably, I basically said that without saying that, but if this has a value to the people, the Van Trust and the folks that are either buying those warehouses or renting those warehouses, then they'll participate. If it doesn't, then I don't think it's something the city needs to step in and subsidize.
Okay. Sonia?
Just to add, I think that there's a huge need for childcare, for quality childcare in our area, period. I think right off the highway, I mean, the doors are open not only for that development there, but for really Cass County. I mean, it would be huge right here at the edge of Cass County, right off the highway. And my comment about talking to the schools, I mean, that's always important, but wouldn't it be cool if our school districts could partner on something there, knowing we both have childcare centers already?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll add a closing comment for myself. Yes, a partnership with a lot of the stakeholders involved in this is definitely critical. Adding to that list of personnel, definitely talk to the WCA,
The West Central.
West Central, thank you. They are already having conversations I had back in August about this. They are having this exact same conversation about out here and providing an opportunity. So definitely include them in the conversation, because they may be a little farther along in some concepts that we are at this stage. So I think that would be a value add. And to Sonia's comment, there's only 42 child care facilities registered or licensed in Cass County, with a capacity of 2,900 children, of 100,000 residents in Cass County. So not all of them are school-age children, obviously, but a good chunk are probably school-age that has some needs for child care. And if we have in the northern area provided just for Raymore, potential for 1,500 jobs, I think, when it's fully operational, all of our industrial complexes, in addition to the other businesses that we've brought online, the other multifamily and single-family homes that we are bringing online, I think it would be a benefit if we were able to do something like this for our community that also service the larger region as well. So I applaud staff bringing it forward, and hopefully we can, as a group of stakeholders, come up with a plan that works.
Well said. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate you. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to item B, which is the fiscal year 23-24 budget, of which we've had one reading on, but we still open it up for discussion. If there's anything anybody would like to bring it up at this time, we'd open the floor for discussion. If there's nothing, we have no reason to go into executive session, but is there anything under other you want to bring up?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? If there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good evening.